Hi and a very good morning. Now, we may be on a completely different platform, but we're here rocking and rolling. And it's Saturday, the 7th of March. How are you doing? I hope you are all well. And welcome to the Council Tax Strategies for Definance and Discharge webinar. First, let me introduce myself. If this is your first time attending one of our presentations. My name is Simone and I'm the head of the Advocate Network Department. Now, there's going to be lots of great information that we're going to share, so I hope you can see me and hear me, because that's always a very good start. I know with our speaker, we've already done a sound check, so that's all working out really, really well. Now, this presentation is being recorded and will be available on the platform in the next few days. Along with the recording will be additional handouts to complement today's presentation as well. There are going to be some questions. We do have a slide coming up, so keep an eye out on that. However, if you do have any additional questions after this webinar, there is a slide that will be coming up with an email address, so send your questions to that email address, okay? And then once what we do, our speaker and another individual called Andy, who's our host of head, should I say, of Ross Media, they will do an additional session as well to cover all your questions. But hopefully the questions you've already got will be answered throughout the presentation. There will be some additional links and we will get that emailed out to you as well. So no worry there. But I hope you've got your pen and paper handy, because as I said, some phenomenal information is going to be shared. So let me introduce you to our speaker. He is the founder and the president of the Republic of Old Souls. We have Ian Clifford. Hey, Ian, good morning. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing good, actually. It's, there's always a solution, as we say, or as I say. And we had our software attacked. It happened, I think it happened overnight. We woke up early this morning to find out that we didn't have access to GoToWebinar. So that's why it's not working. And it's almost certainly our dear adversary, Mr. Simon Goldberg, and his posse that have fired in some kind of complaint to GoToWebinar, and they've shut the account down, which we weren't able to restore because they're not there on a Saturday morning. So that's why we've moved to this platform rather than cancel it. I think a lot of people are interested in the council tax solution, so we decided to do it, and we're going to record it. So if those that weren't aware of the email and the messages I put into Telegram earlier, if they weren't aware of those and are trying to get on the GoToWebinar, which isn't going to work for them, they'll be able to see this. We'll make the recording available. We'll probably put it in the Telegram, the main Playing Monopoly to Win Telegram channel. We'll probably put it up on Ross Media and in the platform. So for those who are not here, because they're probably trying to get on the GoToWebinar link, they will be able to see this at some later date. As soon as it's rendered, we'll put it up for people to watch. It's a big topic, council tax, and I've been following the various groups that are out there that are trying very hard to remove the council tax problem from their lives. There's a lot of people doing different things. I have to say, not that many of them are making a success of their attempts. So I'm going to explain why that is, and then I'm going to give you two remedies that have a track record of working. So if you're interested in things that actually work, which you should be, I'm going to present two things to you today that solve the problem. One is the art of legal warfare, as it says on the slide here, and the other one is the currency creation. That's the recoupment of your abandoned credit from the age of 18, which you should be doing anyway. If you're not already doing it, you should be, because it's a game changer. And I'm going to explain how you use the commerce, how you use the currency creation, I should say, together with the Asset Fortress protocol to operate as your private treasury, so that you don't really have to worry about funding council tax or any other tax for that matter. But before we get into how that works, if you're new to my webinars, I want to explain a couple of resources that you may or may not be aware of. I write a lot of technical papers. If you're into why things work and how they work, the papers I write are available on Ecclesia Law Institute. We have a Telegram channel, Ecclesia Law. We also have it's similar to Substack. It's called Ghost. We've just set up a X page or an X account, which will have the research papers on it. And there's a website. So if you are interested in why what I'm putting forward works and how it works, the Ecclesia Law papers, I think, are well worth a read. You don't have to read them all. There's about 50 of them at the moment, so quite a few things to read. But I have, in the last 2 weeks, I have been, because I was asked to do this, there are 3 really big ideologies that are going around and have been going around in the truth and freedom community. The first one is the misunderstanding of the straw man, the artificial construct, the birth certificate construct. That's a really big one across the UK, USA, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, which is pretty much where the bulk of our membership is. There is a substantial misunderstanding of how the straw man actually has been constructed, what it is, how it works, etc., etc. The number 2 ideology, and we're going to talk about that today, is this ideology and belief that a lot of people seem to share, that if there's no contract between the living man, woman, and the state, then you don't have to comply with legislation unless you've signed up to some sort of contract. That's the number 2 most popular ideology, and I write all about that as on the Ecclesia Law Institute. And the third one, which I just completed a paper on last night actually, and put it up on our Ecclesia Law. I put it up on a couple of other Telegram. We've got Playing Monopoly to Win. We've also got our private members Telegram channel for enrolled members. And this is a really big one as well. And this one is to do with using bills of exchange to discharge debt, using bills that you receive and endorsing them, and something called acceptance for value. And all of these are, they're kind of promoted, if you like, by Brandon J. Williams, who's got a massive following in the US. And I spent quite a big part of yesterday writing a paper on what he offers, how he believes things work in the negotiable instruments. UCC3 is what it is in the US. It's basically negotiable instruments. And I detail, I think, 5 court cases that he has lost because his ideologies don't work in the courtroom. So if you're interested in that, and I know people like, I think there's a guy called the Beer Guy, if you're in the UK, who has launched various channels, and he's been interviewed by, I think he was interviewed by Richard Vobes a few months ago, putting forward that you could use endorsements or bills of exchange to finance things like the council tax. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. We're going to go through some of the reasons why as we go through the webinar today. But the good news is there are things that do work. So it's not all doom and gloom. We don't do doom and gloom on our webinars. We do remedies. We do solutions. And if you're, as I say, if you're interested in why things work or don't work, and how things work, then have a look at Ecclesia Law. We will be sending out some papers that cover relevant subjects. But if you want to know more about the the wider picture of what's going on the Monopoly Board of Commerce, then that's really why I've written all these papers, because I had a look over the last sort of 7 or 8 years, and I couldn't find anything where anybody had actually brought all the research together and put it all down in documents that you could actually read and hopefully understand what they're talking about. There's a load of stuff out there. A lot of it is a load of nonsense, and a lot of it is very difficult to understand because it's not been written very well, in my opinion. So hopefully you'll find my writing style, you're able to understand what it is I'm saying and how, why I'm saying it. And I'm happy for anyone, anywhere, to challenge my research. I really would welcome it. Andy Benson on the Ross Media channel, he and I are doing a lot of interviews. After this webinar, based upon your questions, if you've got them, I'm sure you will have, we will do a follow-up Q&A. I've been doing this the last 2 weeks. We've done 2 follow-up Q&As where every single question that's been submitted, we put them into categories. I answer them all. I've just done one on mortgage foreclosure, which there was, I think there was 50 questions. Some of them were very similar, so we ended up with 25, and I went through that. And then the previous week, I did a questions and answers on currency creation. So that was a very detailed Q&A. So if you're interested in knowing why things work, how they work, you've got Ecclesia Law research papers, you've got the Q&A, you've got this webinar, and hopefully after watching this, looking at the papers, attending or playing the Q&A interview, you'll be able to get a better understanding of things. And going back on debates, if there is anybody out there that wants to debate me on technical matters, then Andy will be the moderator. If anybody out there wants to challenge me and challenge my research papers and research conclusions, I'm absolutely delighted to do debates like that. I have never been debated so far, which is interesting. I offer it all the time. Nobody ever takes up the offer, which is an interesting concept, I think. I'm sure somebody will at some point, but nobody has yet. So if you are in that position where you want to debate me, or technically, then we'll do it on ROS Media. Andy will be the moderator. You'd have to submit your points of view before the debate. I will look at them because it will be on a particular subject, presumably, and you have to put forward your whatever it is you believe or your research, and I'll take a look at it, and then that will be the nature of the debate. You'll put forward your points, and I will then respond with my points. And that's the idea of a moderator, is that there isn't it's a bit of order, there's a bit of a organized process going on. It's not it's not an argument, it's not a slanging match or anything like that. It is like they try and do in the US with the political debates. You've got somebody says what they want to say, the moderator lets them say it, they shut up, and then the other side has their say, and you go through various subjects one by one. So if you are in that position and you want to debate me, or you know somebody who wants to debate me on what it is I'm saying and wants to challenge it, wants to come up with different viewpoints, that's what also I offer that, and that will be recorded, and that can also be somewhere which you might enjoy watching if you want to learn how I answer the debate questions. So lots of information. Let's move it on. I think the biggest problem that is out there, and I have been looking at this for some time, like in all things, there is the difference between the facts and the perception. And the problem is that in council tax, there's a lot of perception going on about why people think that they can avoid it and not pay it. And the problem is that they don't really understand what it is and how they've been trapped. If they understood what it is, and if they understood how they've been trapped, then they probably wouldn't take up the stance that they are taking up, where they think that there is a way to avoid it. You can avoid anything in this world, but when you avoid things, there's often consequences. If you avoid things which the cabal want you to do, you could go out there and cause all sorts of mayhem, and you probably end up with consequences if you do that. The cabal see anyone that is fighting against the council tax. This isn't my term, this is their term. They say that that is belligerency. You are being belligerent and you are not a very good slave. So that's what their beliefs are. The problem with the council tax is that it's not what a lot of people think it is. I'm not here to agree or disagree with whether it should be there or not. The reality of the matter is it is there. And if you look at how many people have beaten it by claiming that it's not a tax that they've ever consented to or that they've ever agreed to, if you go and have a look, and if you go on, this is a very good search engine if you want to find out things that have been censored. If you go on Yandex, Yandex, it's a Russian search engine. It's not in Russian, it's in English if you're an English speaker, which presumably you are. You can actually search on there a court resource called Bailey, Bailey. And if you're going to have a look on there and put in UK court cases on council tax, you'll find that nobody wins by putting forward a presentment, which is a bundle of documents that claims that they have never consented to the council tax. You're not going to find anybody winning that one because it's a fundamentally flawed argument. We'll come back to that in a couple of slides' time. So the problem is that the council tax is legislation which the body corporate, the birth certificate body corporate, has to comply with. And I've had this, I've been presenting this for a while now because there's a lot of myth out there. If you read my paper on the straw man, you'll understand what's going on with this. When your mum and dad registered the birth certificate, they obviously got a document, the birth certificate, and they probably put it away for safekeeping until you came of age, which in the UK is 18, in other countries it might be 21. And what you didn't realise, and what your mum and dad didn't realise, is that this birth certificate, I call it the birth certificate construct, it is an artificial entity. It is basically it's a player piece that sits on the monopoly board of commerce. So if you are new to my webinars, the living men and women are the source of energy, and the energy is transferred onto the monopoly board of commerce, where everything on the monopoly board is artificial. If you try and ring up the council, right, just let's imagine that you're living in the UK, right, and you are, let's say you're in Birmingham, and you want to talk to Birmingham Council, okay? Can you do it? Can you pick up the phone ring Birmingham Council up and say, I want to speak to Birmingham Council. And somebody's on the other end of the line is going to say, well, I can put you through to the council tax enforcement officers. I can put you through to some department within the council. And you say, no, I want to speak to Birmingham City Council. Do you think you can? No, it's impossible, yeah? Because Birmingham City Council is a artificial construct which sits on the Monopoly Board. You are a living man or woman. You don't get to step on that Monopoly Board of Commerce because it's artificial. It's impossible to step onto it. But you can play the game of Monopoly on the artificial Monopoly Board through constructs, through artificial entities. And one of those artificial entities is, and the main one that people play Monopoly, the player piece, is the birth certificate construct. So what's going on here is the council, which is a artificial construct that is playing Monopoly, is playing Monopoly with another artificial construct, which is the birth certificate construct. So you've got two artificial entities playing Monopoly with each other. The council, you've got the government. Try and ring the government up. Can you ring the government up? I want to talk to the government. Well, we can put you through to the press office. We can put you through to somebody in the government. But no, I want to talk to the government. Can you do it? No, you can't do that either. But so you've got the government and all of their legislation that is on the Monopoly Board of Commerce, all artificial. And then you've got the living men and women who are not on the Monopoly Board at all. But the whole Monopoly Board works on the basis of an energy transfer. So the living men and women transfer their energy onto the Monopoly Board through the birth certificate construct, which has become, when you come of age, it's become a banker. And that banker, which isn't you, because you can't talk to it, go and get the birth certificate out and see if you have a chat with it. Have a conversation with it. Take it out to dinner. It's not you, yeah? It's a piece of paper that is registered an artificial construct with a reference number on it, with a different day of registration from the day that you were born. And yet nearly everybody I've ever met thinks that that birth certificate is them. And it isn't. But it is registered to the cabal. It is registered to the Crown if you're in the UK. And because it's registered to them, they control it. And that is where the biggest problem is with the council tax. The artificial construct of the birth certificate is registered to the Crown. So when they are taxing it for the council tax, they don't need anyone's permission to tax their own artificial construct, which is registered to them. That's why they registered the birth certificate in the first place, so that they had control of the flow of energy that comes from the living man woman onto the Monopoly Board through the birth certificate construct. And the living man woman, whether they realize it or not, is now taken up the position of the agent for the birth certificate construct. And the agent is responsible for all of the liabilities of the principal. The principal is the birth certificate construct itself. So the problem with the council tax is that it is applicable to the birth certificate construct. They don't need anyone's authority or permission or any contracts to be signed between the birth certificate construct and the local council, because they're both registered to the cabal. Those two player pieces on the Monopoly Board are both controlled by the cabal. They don't need anyone's permission. That's why they registered the birth certificate in the first place. So what is the council tax? It's legislation. It's legislation that is applicable to the birth certificate construct, which they don't need any permission from anyone to roll out and to enforce. They claim that 30% of it goes towards local spending. Well, you can debate that. Lots of people have done research into that. It doesn't really matter where the money goes, whether it goes to the council, whether it goes somewhere else. A lot of people believe it goes to the Vatican. Some people believe it goes to the bankers. It doesn't really matter where it goes. It's kind of irrelevant. All that matters is that there has to be funding of it. Otherwise, there's going to be consequences. And what we're going to talk about later on in this webinar is what you can do if you're experiencing those consequences, but also what you can do to fund it, which is probably more important than fighting the council. There was a major shift in 1933. I've spoken about this many, many times. There is a research paper on ecclesial law that explains the bankruptcy of the entire monopoly board. So once you realise that everything on the monopoly board itself is operating in bankruptcy, and I don't mean it's a bit short of a few shekels, I'm talking about actual Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So what I mean by that is that all of the artificial constructs which play monopoly on the Monopoly Board of Commerce are all operating in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They are able to play the game, but they are all playing it as debtors. Every single artificial construct. That's including the governments, it's including BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Morgan Stanley, all the financial services companies. Everything on that monopoly board is operating in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which happened in 1933. If you look at House Joint Resolution 192, go and look it up. I've written papers on it at Ecclesial Law. It is what changed the game of monopoly, fundamentally changed how the game was being played. Everything on the monopoly board is bankrupt, and the bankruptcy trustee is the United States Treasury. The United States dollar is the world reserve currency. Everything is balanced back to United States dollars. All this talk about the BRICS and Bitcoin and all of these other things that people talk about, everything is balanced back to the dollar. Unless the dollar is removed as the world reserve currency, it's the world's currency, that everyone is balancing their other things, whatever those other things are, back towards the dollar. That's why it's the reserve currency of the world. Now, the United States Treasury, being the bankruptcy trustee, they are the bankruptcy trustee for who? The creditors, yeah? So who are the creditors to this bankruptcy of the entire monopoly board? There are only two categories of creditors. The first category are those that created the game of monopoly. And the second category are all the living men and women that have been putting their energy on the monopoly board ever since they came of age. 18, 21, whatever the age is in the country that you're in. So that's the big shift that happened in 1933. And you might be thinking, what the hell has that got to do with council tax? Well, it's got a lot to do with it, as you'll find out as we go through. Next slide. Now, some of the terminology in this presentation is not my wording, by the way. Pseudo-legal. This is what the courts say. This is how they describe the various defendants that turn up in courtrooms. They call it pseudo-legal claims. You can go and have a look at that. Going on Yandex, go into Bailey, and you'll see court cases, and you'll see how judges describe defendants that are turning up in courtrooms all over the UK putting forward a few different sort of presentments, a few different arguments. There's really only 2 or 3 that are the majority of the arguments being put forward. The first one, and I've actually had an interview with this fella. His name is Pete Stone from the Sovereign Project. He advocates, and his group advocates, and I've written a paper on this only about 3 or 4 days ago. He advocates that all you've got to do, if you want to avoid paying the council tax, is go into the, basically don't pay it. And then when they start getting really aggressive and start sending out demands, and then maybe sending out, court documents and things of this type, that you can go into the courtroom. And we actually did a role play on the interview that I did with Pete Stone, because I said to him, well, how about if I was the judge, Pete, and you become the defendant, and I will ask you to basically present your case, which Pete did. And Pete's case was quite simple, really. It's like, well, there's no contract between Pete Stone, the living man, and the council. So unless the judge, and I was taking the role of the judge, could evidence that there's a contract between Pete Stone, the living man, and the council, that he wasn't going to pay it, and unless there's any contract that could be shown by the judge or the council, he was going to walk out of the courtroom without having to fund the council tax payments. As I presented myself as the judge, and by the way, I'd never want to be a judge in a million Sundays would I ever want to be a judge. But my question to Pete Stone was, it's all very interesting, Mr. Stone, but can you point me towards any case that's ever won with that presentment? And of course, Pete Stone can't, because no case has ever won in the courtroom by claiming that there is no contract between the living man or woman and the council to agree to pay council tax. So although it's a lovely belief to have that everything, everything requires a contract to be signed between the living man, woman, and the artificial construct on the monopoly board, it's going to be a bit difficult to get an artificial construct to sign a contract, isn't it? Because they're not living or breathing, yeah? So they can't really easily sign a contract because they're not real, they're artificial. But let's suppose they could sign a contract. Do you think that the council is going to send a contract to every single resident of their area, whatever their council area is? Do you really think they're going to send you a contract and say, hey, this is our offer of the council tax. If you sign this, you're going to have to pay it. If you don't sign it, you don't have to pay it. Don't worry about it, because you've never agreed to our terms, and therefore you don't have to pay it. Could you imagine what would happen if they did that? I don't think that would work very well for the council. So they don't need anyone's signature on a contract. The whole of the Sovereign Project's belief pretty much is on this flawed belief that if there's no contract, you're not obligated. Well, there's nothing in the law that supports it. And I can't find any court cases that anybody's ever won by advancing that presentment in a courtroom. The courts actually call it cargo cult, because that's the term they give it. I don't give it that term. They give it the term cargo cult legalism, because it's kind of like, and it's like a cult belief. I was listening to a podcast earlier this morning about cults. There's lots of them in the world, and people join them and they sign up for a belief system, which is the cult's belief system. Very few cult members actually challenge the belief, because everybody in that cult believes it, and that's good enough for them. Well, in the courtroom, you can't really turn up with a cult belief and expect to win, and that's why they call it cargo cult. And there's no evidence that this works. So if you try it, you'll find out probably the hard way that the no contract argument isn't going to work for you. Next slide. Now, to bring it home, right, this is a very good analogy, I think. I came up with this and thought, yeah, that should make sense to people. Let's imagine that you were driving down the motorway in your very fast car, and you've never signed a contract to agree to abide by the speed limit. Yeah, and you want to drive down that motorway at 140 miles per hour because you've got a very fast car, right? Do you think that if you got pulled in by the police, if they could catch you, which they might struggle if you're going 140, but let's suppose they've got an even faster car than yours, and they pull you in, and you wind the window down and say, "Don't worry about it, officer. I never signed the contract to agree to the speed limit." What do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to say, "Oh, well, that's okay, sir. Don't worry about it. Have a nice day, and we're going to carry on our way"? Or do you think they're going to prosecute? I think they're going to prosecute, yeah? It might even take the driving license away from the artificial construct of the birth certificate that is already registered to them. You see how the game works? You can't say it doesn't apply to me because there's no contract. Because if you could, what about all the other hundreds of pieces of legislation? Have you got all those contracts signed? No. And they don't need any signatures. So you see, that's the biggest problem. The reality is that the taxes are payable by the artificial construct, whether you like it or whether you don't. It's the reality of it. And the artificial construct is registered to the cabal. So it's their player piece, and they get to make the rules, yeah? Because they set your mum and dad up right from the beginning when the birth certificate was first registered. Next slide. Now here's what's really going on, and this is applicable across everything. And I talk about this a lot. I've written a paper on ecclesial law all about the agency trap, and nearly every guru out there, whether it's Clive Edwards, whether it's Robin Hood, whether it's a whole list of others, Pete Stone, you name it, there's loads of people out there who are advancing different ideologies where they're basically saying that you are not the straw man. All right, and this is in my straw man paper that I wrote a few days ago. So the basic concept of what a lot of people with different ideologies believe, and they're all different. They're all different sort of variations on the theme, right? Which is, the theme is this: I am not the straw man, and therefore I don't have to do what the straw man, the legislation is only applicable to the straw man. I am not the straw man, and therefore I don't have to comply. And there's all different variations on that theme, whether it is common law, whether it is the no contract, whether it is the Constitution, whether it's I'm living and the straw man is dead, and it's I'm under God's law only and I'm not under Rome's law, and all of these different variations on the theme. The problem is that the birth certificate construct is an artificial entity registered to the crown, registered to the cabal, where they presume that the living man or woman who is a baby at the time is going to grow up and become of age and then get a social insurance number, very significant, is going to operate as the agent for the birth certificate construct. Now let's have a look at what does agency really mean. the law of agency is something which is mostly misunderstood. It's certainly misunderstood by the gurus out there that are saying that you're not the straw man, you don't have to comply with anything that is constraining, or where the straw man has to operate in this way or that way through legislation, and you're not the straw man, therefore you don't have to follow. Well, the cabal that set up this birth certificate construct and monopoly board of commerce are a bit smarter than that. What they did was they trapped all of the living men and women through the law of agency. So you see, if you are acting as the agent, which you have been, unless you've realized this a long time ago and rescinded the agency, you've probably held yourself out as if you are the straw man, as if you are the birth certificate construct. So if you've got, for example, if you've got a bank account, if you've got a driving license, if you've got a passport, if you've ever paid any taxes, if you've ever voted, you have held yourself out, which is a term in the law, that you are representing that you are the straw man, the birth certificate construct. You see how they trapped you? They got you to believe that you were the straw man. And even if you've only just realized that you're not the straw man, there's plenty of evidence that you've been playing Monopoly as the straw man. And because you are presumed to be the agent of the straw man, the birth certificate construct, the agency law says that the agent is responsible for the actions of the principal. Well, the principal is the birth certificate construct that is playing this game of Monopoly, this artificial game of Monopoly. And the cabal tricked everybody to operate as the agent for the birth certificate construct. And because the agent is equally as liable as the principal, anything that is applicable to the straw man, the birth certificate construct, is therefore a liability of the agent. You see how they trapped everybody? It doesn't matter whether you say, hey, I'm living and I only abide by God's law. The Magna Carta protects me, Article 61. All these other constitutions, the Bill of Rights, any other constitutional act, they all protect me. I'm not that straw man. You don't have to. You don't have to worry about me complying with, or giving consent to, because I'm not that straw man. Again, go on Yandex, go and have a look at Bailey, and see if you can find anyone who says that they are not the straw man, and therefore they walk out the courtroom with no liability. Even if the judge were to agree, yes, if I was going in there, yes, Ian, I agree that you are not the artificial construct. I can agree that. And I've actually seen this. This has actually happened fairly recently, right? Yeah, the judge will say, I agree with you based on your presentment that you are not the artificial construct. That is the legal person, and you are the natural living man, Ian. Yeah, I can agree with that. But the problem is, you're still liable for the actions of the artificial construct. And what are you going to say to that? You're going to say, I never consented? They don't need consent. And that's why nobody wins. It's all about the agency trap. And it doesn't have to be signed. You don't have to get a contract again. Do you want to be the agent for the birth certificate construct? Because you see, something in the law that a lot of people don't realize is that there is a common practice which is called substance over form. So what does it mean? If you have opened a bank account, got a driving license, got a passport, paid taxes, got a job, had PAYE deductions, all of these things. Ever used your social insurance number for anything, or the social insurance number? That is substance in the law, right? You've actually acted as the agent for the birth certificate construct. Whether you like it or not, whether you've realized it or not in recent years that you're not this artificial straw man, you have acted in substance as if it were you. I remember having a chat with Clive Edwards about a year ago. He was telling me, he's the guy from Capillary Wave, who I've written a paper about that recently. That's on ecclesia law as well. He told me on a video meeting, yeah, Ian, all you've got to do is say to the judge, basically, that you are a man under God. And if you're a man under God, he's got no jurisdiction over you, and none of the legislative acts apply to you. And that's all you've really got to do. It's a couple of other things, but that's basic principle of it. And I said to him, okay, Clive, if it was like that, then why is it I can't find anybody winning with that presentment in the court? And he said, oh, well, he said that he won with that presentment, right? He said, yeah, well, you won't find it. They won't publish it anywhere, but I won. Clive Edwards won against the local council when he was trying to get planning permission. So I thought that's very interesting. If they allowed Clive Edwards from Capillary Wave to win against not getting planning permission, why isn't everybody else getting the same result? Think of all those people that want to build an extension. I want to build an outbuilding in their garden. Why aren't they all just doing it and then saying to the council, don't worry about it. Clive Edwards won. He's a man under God. I'm a man or a woman under God. I'm going to build this great big thing in my back garden. There's nothing you can do. The reality of it is that Clive Edwards didn't win. Because when you look into it, the council just didn't pursue him because his piece of land was pretty small, and they couldn't be bothered to argue, to take him all through the very expensive court process. So they let him get away with not having planning permission. He claims he won, but there's no judgment, there's no documents anywhere in any system that evidences that he did win. And nobody else, by the way, has ever won either. So you see, just another example of where a perception, an ideology starts to spread. It's a bit like a cult, where people believe that you can put these arguments forward and you might win, but it's not based on any reality. And the reason why is for the same reason. I said to Clive Edwards when I had a video meeting with him, but Clive, the living man is the agent for the birth certificate. How are you going to break the agency? And he didn't want to go into that. I don't think he understood it, never looked at it. He said it was too complicated for his way of doing things. He just did it very simply. He's a man under God. That's all you need to know, Ian. And I said, but there's a problem with agency, Clive. Next slide. Okay, now we're going to talk about what actually works. Now, I can speak from first-hand experience on many cases. Some people out there don't realize that I have had many cases. There's only a few that I didn't win, and it wasn't because I was defective in how I was presenting my cases. It was because they were railroaded and rigged. But I have won lots of cases in different countries. I have won cases in the UK, in the High Courts. I have won cases in the Irish courts, in the Court of Appeal, notably. I have won cases in Bermuda. I won a case in Paris. I've won a case in Hong Kong, all very high profile. Many people are unaware of these cases. And how did I win them all? Did I win them by going in saying I'm a man under God? No. Did I win them by saying there's no contract? No. I won them using the art of legal warfare. Okay, so what is that, you might be thinking? You see the artificial construct. If you remember, you can't go to dinner with it, yeah? You can't call it up. It is artificial. Everything on the Monopoly Board of Commerce operates through procedures. There is procedures for everything. If you look at the procedures in the legal system in the United Kingdom, for example, there's thousands and thousands of things that you're supposed to do, literally. The court procedure rules, the CPR, right? If you go and download it, go and Google it, go and put it in your internet search bar and download the court procedure rules. I'm sure you're not going to want to read all this because it's like voluminous. There's pages and pages and pages of procedures. There's a whole manual of procedures. So I was once asked some time ago, Ian, you know, you seem to understand a lot of these things. Why didn't you become a lawyer years ago? Why did you go into financial services, right? Why didn't you do law? I mean, you're pretty good. You seem to be pretty good at it, right? And the reason why I did study it in the 90s, but I didn't ever practice it. The reason why I wasn't attracted to it is because it's got absolutely nothing to do with justice. I remember I went to dinner one time and there was a couple of lawyers on the dinner table. I hadn't met them before. And, you know, everyone says, oh, what do you do? What do you do? All that kind of thing. And it got to the lawyers and I said to them, what are you guys doing? Oh, yeah, we work for this law firm. We're lawyers. And I thought, okay. I said, so are you like really big believers in the law? And they said, oh, yeah, we're really big believers in the law. I said, do you think law's got anything to do with justice? No, it's nothing to do with justice. No, it's to do with procedure. So you see, that's why I didn't want to practice law, because the law, which most people think is justice, what is right and wrong, doesn't really feature that much in the legal system. The legal system is all about the procedures. Right, now let's have a look at the council, shall we? Do you think anybody who works in the local council is an expert on the civil procedure rules or the court procedure rules? Do you think that if you put them on Mastermind, they would get like 10 out of 10 on Mastermind, answering every single question about the civil procedure or the court procedure rules? I don't think they would. And nearly every single lawsuit is won by the in every lawsuit there's normally two main parties. There could be more. It could be a class action where there's loads and loads of people. But generally speaking, there's two parties in a lawsuit. Party A and Party B. Party A says this and that and the other, and Party B is the defendant, says, no, I don't agree with you. And for all these reasons, I'm going to see you in court. Yeah. So you say I owe you money. I say I don't. I'm going to see you in court. Yeah. So Party A is the plaintiff and Party B is the defendant. So what would happen if Party B turned up and says, hey, I don't think it's morally right to pay the council tax, so therefore I'm not going to pay it? Think that argument's going to win? No. How about the council tax doesn't go to the council, it goes to the Vatican. And I don't want to support the Vatican because I'm not Catholic. You think that's going to win? No. How about, I don't think the roads are in very good shape, and I'm not going to pay the council tax because the road outside my house has got some pit holes. You think that's going to win? No. How about, I don't like the councillor. I didn't vote for this guy or girl, and I don't like what they're doing in my local council area, so I'm not paying. You think that's going to work? No. When they start sending out the bills, the council tax bills, and they send them to the occupant or the resident, a lot of people say, well, I'm not the occupant, I'm not the resident, therefore I'm not going to pay it. Well, the problem is that you are the occupant because you're the agent for the occupant, you're the agent for the resident, right? Whether you want to be it or not, you already are it, right? That's how they see it. So going into a courtroom on the basis that it's not morally, you don't agree morally with the council tax, doesn't work. Going in there with there's no contract, I'm a living man or woman under God, doesn't work. The Constitution protects me. There's nothing. Let's have a look at the Local Government Finance Act. Let's find some problems with that. Let's argue about that. None of these things work. But what does work is whether the council follow procedure. That's what works. In every case I've won, it's about procedure. And that is the art of legal warfare. First of all, you've got to know your enemy. You've got to know what the moves are that your enemy should be following if they are compliant with the civil procedure rules. And if they're not compliant with them, that becomes their Achilles heel. And you can get the whole case, if there is a case, struck out, not on moral grounds, not on all these other presentments that people keep putting in the courtroom, but on a breach of procedure. Because you remember the dinner party? I said to the lawyers, do you think the law is about justice? No, it's about procedure. So the way you win against the council is you identify where their procedural process is non-compliant to the civil procedure rules. That's one way to win. There is another way to win. Next slide. And this is the one that has recently won. And it's basically procedure again. So let's imagine that you've got an open court case with the council right now. Did a qualified lawyer with a bar card, i.e. their registered bar member, did they operate as the prosecutor? Or was it some staff member of the council that sent all the papers out? Was it a barrister or a lawyer with a bar card? Or was it somebody from the council that sent all the documents? In every case I've seen, it's not a lawyer or a barrister that's sending out the documents. Why? Because the council can't afford to bring lawyers or barristers in because they've got a cookie cutter. It's like a factory of paperwork that they send out, yeah? And most people just comply. When they get threatened with court action, they just typically comply. So from the point of view of economics, the council doesn't bring in a law firm on every single claim. They don't bring a barrister in on every single claim for sure. What they do is they send things out from it's called the paralegal argument. So they basically employ people that are not lawyers, not barristers, to send all the documents out. Sometimes they sign the documents. That breaches procedure. You can strike out the whole claim right there. Because under the Legal Services Act, it's got to be litigation that is advanced by a qualified prosecutor. Now, strangely enough, in the case that I have been battling with the FCA, the FCA invented a prosecutor, Alistair Mackenzie, who I can't find anywhere, nor can anybody else, who's never presented a case as a prosecutor for the FCA, working for the FCA, before the case that this fictional character has prosecuted against me, and he's never prosecuted one since. So that's an extreme example of a breach of procedure, yeah? If there is no prosecutor that is qualified as a prosecutor, how can there be a case? Let's make it even more ridiculous, right? Let's imagine that you were in court on Monday for the council tax. And you go into what is allegedly a courtroom, which may or may not be a courtroom, by the way, and there's some guy sitting there with a clown outfit on. And you're thinking, well, hold on a minute. I thought there was going to be a magistrate in this with a suit on. There's a fella sitting at the front with a clown costume on, who claims to be a magistrate. And there's another guy sitting there with a dragon suit on, who claims to be the council's lawyer. Do you think they would win that? I don't think so. You see, their Achilles heel is that they presume that the taxpayer, which is the body corporate birth certificate, is just going to buckle under the pressure and pay up. So they don't bring lawyers in. They don't even bring judges in. They don't bring barristers in because they're a bit too expensive, yeah? How much is a barrister per hour, do you think? Hundreds of pounds, could be thousands of pounds an hour, yeah? Is the council going to pay a barrister to sit there and present all the paperwork when the actual cost of the barrister is more than the value of the council tax they're trying to collect? So you see their weakness, their Achilles heel in the art of legal warfare is that if you know your enemy's weakness, your enemy, the council, isn't prepared with all the right credentials, and that is their Achilles heel. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can have a look at this. Go and have a look into it. The Legal Services Act, the Missouri case, as we'll look at in a minute. Next slide. Ashford versus Ross. Canterbury. There's your claim number. The fella, Ross, challenged the council that they didn't have the right credentials and won the case. Go and look into it. You'll find that to be true. So unless the councils all over the UK start to use lawyers and barristers, that's precedent right there. What's the legal system all about? Is it about justice? No, it's about case precedent. That's another reason why I didn't practice law. It's like, am I going to be working on something that is going to expose what is wrong and give people justice if I became a lawyer? No. What I'm going to be doing is finding cases that have already decided one way or the other and just quoting them. Is that justice? No. It's procedure. You see? So the procedure here is that this case is set a precedent. If you quote it in your documents, you'll get the same outcome because it's procedure. The art of legal warfare is knowing your enemy's weakness. You've got to know your enemy, and then you've got to know their weakness. And their weakness is right here. Next slide. And they've got another weakness, which is, and I've been working on a case which you'll all probably get to hear about in due course. You may even know the case that I'm talking about. There is a certain lady who I've been working with in providing forensic research to via ecclesia law. I haven't been giving legal services because I don't do that, but I have been doing research, and I have been looking into the fundamental flaws of the council that this particular lady has been battling with, who've been trying to make this particular lady bankrupt for quite some time now. And this lovely lady, who you may know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say her name because she may not want you to know. I'll leave her to disclose that if she wants to. And she has tried the no contract. She has tried the living soul argument, which was the Clive Edwards. She's tried sort of other things as well, a bit more aggressive about the the constitutional stuff and the is it legal, is the court legal, and all that kind of thing. She tried all those things, and for a fairly, in the grand scheme of things, fairly modest amount of council tax arrears, the council in question, because she's fairly high profile and want to make an example of her, issued basically tried to make her bankrupt by issuing a statutory demand. So if you know what that is, that's basically it's an order for debt. It's a demand to pay debt. But if you issue a statutory demand, again, there's procedure behind it. It's got to be issued within a certain procedural way. There are various steps that have to be followed in procedure of serving a statutory demand. Normally, statutory demands are not issued if there is already a liability order in place, because that becomes a secured debt. You don't normally get a statutory demand as well as a liability order. So if the procedure of serving the statutory demand is defective, the whole case can be struck out. Procedure, art of legal warfare. Nothing to do with the morality of the case, nothing to do with whether the tax is payable by the living soul or not, nothing to do with any of that, just on procedure. And if the council don't follow procedure, and you point this out in your court presentments, and let's say you lose, because it's railroaded, right? Let's say that the county court railroads it. Well, then you've got grounds for appeal because they haven't followed procedure. And you can win an appeal on procedural grounds. I have won in the Court of Appeal on procedural grounds. This stuff works. Next slide. See, a judgment debt. All of these things mean something in the legal system. If they've issued a judgment debt, then they shouldn't be issuing a statutory demand as well. If they have issued a statutory demand, it's got to be issued in a particular way. And it's quite difficult to serve it correctly. So they don't. They might put it through the letterbox. That's not service. They might post it. That's not service. They might send it by email. That's not service. So in my case with the FCA, another procedural Achilles heel for the FCA, prior to, if you know anything about my case, which you may or may not know about it, but if you do know about it, you'll know that at the early part of 2025, I served a notice on the FCA and Southwark Crown Court because I had moved out of the United Kingdom. So I physically wasn't in the United Kingdom. Whether you could, and you can argue about whether you could be or whether you couldn't be, because it's an artificial construct. But the Ian Clifford stamp, which is the artificial construct birth certificate, was not playing Monopoly in the United Kingdom from 2023 onwards. And I told the FCA and Southwark Crown Court by a notice that the Ian Clifford stamp body corporate construct no longer had a registered address in the United Kingdom. Okay, so you might be thinking, what's that got to do with the council tax, right? Well, it's got lots to do with it if they ever try and serve a statutory demand, because they can only serve it on a registered address. Well, in my case, in the case with the FCA, I told the FCA I didn't have a registered address anymore. I only had a correspondence address. You see? So they could send things to this correspondence address, but not to a registered address. And they could also not send by email, because the email that they wanted to send to wasn't registered to me either. And the reason I'm explaining this is because if the council serves a statutory demand, they have to comply with the service of documents, writs, warrants, and orders has to be in line with the civil procedure rules. If they're not, then you can strike the case out because they haven't followed the procedure. Same as with the council tax. So the art of legal warfare isn't about justice. It isn't about what's right and wrong. It's about playing Monopoly with more skill and compliance to the civil procedure rules than the other side. Next slide. And then you can get even deeper if they try and make the body corporate construct, the birth certificate construct, bankrupt. You can go into the insolvency law or the rules of insolvency. And you can quote that the statutory demands, which they like using, by the way, because they come with a great deal of threat, the statutory demand, should only really be used for unsecured debts. Well, how can it be an unsecured debt if they've got a liability order? That's a secured debt, yeah? So you see procedure, it's all about procedure. And they very rarely follow procedure. Put the council officers into mastermind, and their specialist subject is the civil procedure rules. I think we already established earlier, they probably wouldn't do very well on the program Mastermind, if you remember that program. Next slide. But there is a much more elegant way of avoiding all of that stress, as I've presented a number of times, the peaceful remedy, right? So from the age of 18, unbeknown to you, unbeknown to me, unbeknown to probably everybody on this webinar and everybody who's going to watch it, the recording, nobody took you to one side and explained how the Monopoly Board works. There is no court, there's no syllabus in the school, in the university, there's no books in the library, not in any library I've ever been in. And if you go onto the internet and say, hey, I want to know how to play Monopoly really well, I think you're going to find that you get pictures of Monopoly boards and rules of Monopoly and it's going to talk to you about the player pieces and the hotels, and you get £100 for going past go and all those kind of things, right? I don't think anyone's going to publish any book that is going to explain to you that you're actually playing an artificial game. You're playing it from the age of majority, which is 18 or 21. You're playing it as the agent for the body corporate construct, which is a banker under the Bills of Exchange Act. The banker is going to issue promises to pay on the monopoly board all the time, whether it's bank payments, whether it's getting a mortgage, whether it's getting a credit card, a loan, or whether it is even getting paid on PAYE. You're not going to find any book, unless you find one of my books, that's going to explain how the game of Monopoly works. No one's going to explain to you that the entire Monopoly board operates in bankruptcy, and that you, the living man or woman, is one of the creditors to the bankruptcy of the entire Monopoly board. And as a creditor, you are entitled to receive taxes or rent from the artificial constructs which are on the monopoly board who use your energy. So you see, when you go and make a bank payment, sign up for a mortgage, credit card or loan, or get paid, PAYE if you're involved in that or have ever been involved in that, there are nominees that operate on the monopoly board, mostly banks, not exclusively, but mostly banks operate as nominees. Well, what's a nominee? A nominee is a fiduciary. What's a fiduciary? It's a trustee, somebody who's looking after your assets. So when you make a bank payment, you're making it through a bank. The bank is operating as your nominee. When you get paid on PAYE, the employer and the bank account that they use is operating as a nominee. When you get a mortgage, the bank that says that they're going to lend money on a mortgage is operating as a nominee. By the way, this is all explained in the IRS publication 1212. Which we had a moment on last Saturday, that just as I was starting to take questions, it was 12:12 on the clock, which was a bit spooky. So under IRS publication 1212, it explains that if a nominee files a 1099 OID to the United States Treasury, the nominee is entitled to taxes. Doesn't actually explain it like this, but this is what it means. From the nominees that have been using your energy. So when you put bank payments together, when you get a mortgage, credit card, loans, PAYE, or pay utilities, taxes, you are paying those taxes by transferring your energy onto the monopoly board through the body corporate construct, which is a banker that is registered to the Crown, to the cabal. And all of that energy that you transferred onto the monopoly board, all those council tax payments you've already made, all of those utility bills you've already made, all of those bank payments, all of the mortgages, that's the face value of the mortgages, credit cards and loans, are all representative of energy that you've put onto the monopoly board, that nominees have been using your energy, and they have been paying taxes, whether you realize it or they realize it, they are paying taxes through an entity to the United States Treasury. And those taxes that they've been paying belong to the creditors. We established earlier on that you as a living man or woman are a creditor. So if you put a new piece on the monopoly board, which is operating as a nominee, for the true creditor, the living man or woman, that files a 1099 OID as a creditor, as the holder in due course, the nominee is entitled to the taxes back from the bankruptcy trustee, which is equal to your bank payments, mortgages, the face value of the mortgages, credit cards, loans, council tax payments, utility payments from the age of 18. So wouldn't it be a good idea to get those taxes back that are due to you? And then you can use them to discharge the council tax without going to war with the council. And then the good news is that every time you make a payment through the body corporate construct, you can recoup it. Spend and recoup. Next slide. And that is exactly what the currency creation protocol is. You see, your energy goes onto the monopoly board as credit, and then it gets converted into currency. Currency is energy, yeah? Currency that if you plug in your electric fan into the wall, what's it going to use? It's going to use currency, yeah? Energy to run the fan. It's no different on the monopoly board. But all that energy that's on the board is the debt. It's all debt. World debt is owed back to the creditors, yeah? Probably getting up to 500 trillion by now, I should think. It's all owed back to the creditors, who are the living men and women. It's all energy. There's no substance to money. Money is just ledgers. It's just energy. And whoever's using the energy on the monopoly board has to pay taxes or rental of the energy to the United States Treasury, because they're using your energy and they've got to pay for it. And the way they pay for it is taxes that go to the United States Treasury. Those taxes belong back to you because you lent your energy to the monopoly board. It's modern slavery. And all since 1933, when all this whole system really kicked into gear, following the bankruptcy of the United States. You can go and read papers on this if you doubt me. Go and read the Modern Money Mechanics, which is from the Federal Reserve. You can have a read of Money in the Modern Economy from the Bank of England. You can read Professor Richard Werner's papers on how the banks create money out of thin air. You can read all sorts of papers. You can read my papers if you want, which explains how currency springs into existence. Ex nihilo, which is Latin for something out of nothing. But it's not really nothing. It's your energy. That's what they're harnessing on the monopoly board. And as I explained on an interview in the week, just imagine, right, you've got a really valuable watch. I mean, my wife wants to get a Patrick Philippe, which I think is hundreds of thousands, right? Let's imagine that she actually had one of those. And she's walking along the street one day, and for some reason it fell off her wrist onto the pavement, and she didn't realize it had fallen off. This thing is worth hundreds of thousands, right? I don't know how it's worth that much, but apparently they are, Patrick Philippe. For some bizarre reason, they are worth that much. She gets home and she says to me, "Oh, I think I've lost my watch." "Oh, never mind. What do you want for tea, love?" Or do you think she'd go down the police station and say, "I was walking down the street earlier today and I think I dropped my watch here. I didn't realize it. Has anybody handed it in?" So if you don't file 1099 OID. Using a grant or trust as your nominee on the Monopoly board, it's a bit like dropping your Patrick Phillip on the pavement and just forgetting about it. I don't think that many people would do it, would they? But we've all been doing it because we didn't know any different. Next slide. And you can do it from the age of majority. Now, okay, some people said to me on my currency creation webinar, why is it like that, Ian? Why is it from the age of majority? What's going on with this age 18, age 21, right? Why isn't it age 15 or 35? You see, the body corporate construct, this straw man, if you want to call it that, the artificial person, gets access to the social insurance number from the age of majority, the age of 18 or 21, yeah? Have you ever wondered why that is? It's not because you can go and draw unemployment benefit from the age of 18. I mean, that's one of the things you could do. You could go on benefits from the age of 18. But it's not really about that. It's really about tracking the amount of energy you've put on the Monopoly board. The social insurance system is a tracking system. And you can't operate as a banker until you've got a social insurance number for the body corporate construct. So the national insurance number is like a tax number. If you were in the United States, the only way you could ever do anything on the Monopoly board is if you hand over your social security number. They want it for everything. They want to know about your social insurance number for anything you do on the Monopoly board in the United States. If I was to say to you, which you probably know if you've been on my previous webinars, that you have got an employee identification number. You say, no, I haven't. I live in Scotland. And why do I need an employee identification number? I've got a social insurance card here. What do I need one of those for? Well, you've got one, whether you like it or not. The employee identification number is from the United States, by the way. Did you know that? The birth certificate construct is an employee of the United States, which is also a body, is also like a birth certificate construct. It's not a birth certificate created entity, but it is a construct, a corporate construct. And it knows who you are through a EIN number, an employee identification number. So the whole game of Monopoly is never explained. Very few people have figured it out. I've been talking about it since 2023, which strangely enough is when the FCA got me arrested. Because I don't think they want you to know about how to play Monopoly. Next slide. Now, if you're going to play the game of Monopoly, you've got to know how to position yourself on the Monopoly board. And the way to do that, it's not the only way of doing it, but for me, the best way of doing it is that you take charge of, as much as you possibly can, the birth certificate construct. You become an envoy of the Republic of Old Souls. You make a declaration that you are no longer happy to operate as the agent for the birth certificate construct. You occupy the office of the general executor of the birth certificate construct. The birth certificate itself is a decedent estate. It's dead, remember? Remember I said, we agreed earlier, that you can't take it for dinner. It's artificial, yeah? It's dead. So if it's dead, it has to be operating in probate. And if it's operating in probate, it has to have an executor. It's like an executor of a will. So you occupy the office as a living man or woman of the general executor, the general executor's office, which gives you a lot more power over the birth certificate construct. It doesn't take all the power away from the crown by the cabal, but it gives you much, it elevates your standing. You then become an envoy. Okay, you might be thinking, well, I don't want to become an envoy. I'm not religious. The game of Monopoly is a belief, yeah? Like all things, if you believe in it, it's a belief. It becomes a belief. But what is a religion? Is a religion not a belief in something or other? A lot of people say following a football team is a religion. Following a cricket team, a rugby team, a netball team. Is that not a religion? You believe in something. So let's suppose that you believe in the way I've described the game of Monopoly, which, by the way, is truthful. You can evidence that it does work like this. If you have a belief and you believe in it, and that's what the Republic of Old Souls also believes in, that's what we do, we believe in the game of Monopoly. If you become an envoy for that belief, Republic of Old Souls, an envoy for that belief system, which, by the way, is truthful, you are now a minister. And if you're a minister for a ministry, that gives you an elevated standing on the Monopoly board. As I've presented many times, you won't find very many cases where the cabal beat the church. If you are an envoy, a minister for a ministry, it gives you elevated status. It's not for today's webinar, but if you really had a major problem, you could assign the damages in your harm that's been caused to you to your grantor trust, which is the artificial construct that you're going to put on the Monopoly board to play Monopoly for you with your private treasury. And you could take up a case in the United States as a minister that is having their beliefs persecuted under Article 1 of the United States Constitution, and also Article 8 of the European Court for Human Rights. If you had a really serious problem, you could do that, and you could take on whoever it is who's attacking you as a minister in the United States under Article 1 of the United States Constitution. Quite powerful. Next slide. Now you see, if you're going to play Monopoly, you need a player piece, yeah? You've already got one, which is the birth certificate construct. But you can't really play with that one very well because it's not registered to you. It's registered to the cabal, yeah? It's their player piece. So you need your own player piece, yeah? And your player piece could be the Asset Fortress Protocol, which is a grantor trust. And you set it on the Monopoly board as a new player piece on this artificial game of Monopoly. And you can use that new player piece to get a bank account. And that bank account becomes your private treasury. And when you're recouping your abandoned credit, these taxes that are owed back to you through the currency creation protocol, you can store them in your private treasury. and you can spend from your private treasury and recoup back to it. Spend and recoup in cycles every year. And if you really had a big problem, as I said, you could transfer the damages that are being caused to you to your Asset Fortress protocol, and you could take up a case of religious persecution, which is quite a powerful thing to do and quite often wins in United States courtrooms. Next slide. And you can spend and recoup. So let's imagine that you are recouping £2 million of mortgages. That's the face value of mortgages, bank payments, council tax payments, PAYE payments, utility bill payments from the age of 18. Let's imagine that's £2 million. You get it into your private treasury and you spend it all, which is putting energy back onto the monopoly board, and then you recoup it back, and then you spend it, and then you recoup it, and then you spend it, and then you recoup it. That is the spend and the recycling of that energy on the board, off the board, on the board, off the board, through your Asset Fortress protocol, which is your private treasury. You have two nominees on the monopoly board. You have one for doing tax filings, and you have another one as your private treasury. By the way, this is how the elites do it. The elites, do you think they are paying the council tax in the way that you are? Or maybe you are? No, they're recouping their abandoned credit using trusts, because somebody took them to one side and explained how the game of Monopoly works. It's probably how they become one of the elites, by the way. Next slide. So a lot of people have said, well, it all sounds very interesting, Ian. Does it work? Yes, it does. We've got evidence of it working. Last year, we had 600 million of wages and tax transcripts that came in before a big sabotage event, which you may or may not know about. And we've had checks back. So does it work? Yes, there is plenty of evidence of it working. And some people are very worried, and they should be, about digital ID. So if you understand what's going on with the UN Agenda 2030, you'll have an appreciation that everything is tracked and traced already, and it's going to get a lot worse going forward. Well, the tracking and tracing is generally speaking about the birth certificate construct. So Ian Clifford's stamp, the birth certificate construct, is going to be tracked and traced through bank accounts, yeah? Digital ID. But do you think the Ian Clifford Grantor Trust, that is under the control of Ian Clifford on the Monopoly board, is also going to be tracked and traced through digital ID? No. So you see, you can put a new piece on the Monopoly board. You can put lots of grantor trusts on the Monopoly board if you want, and you can use them to avoid the digital ID problem. And you can transfer all your assets to the Asset Fortress protocol, the legal title of the assets, and then you can take them off out of the control of the cabal, because they've pretty much got all the control at the moment. Next slide. So you see, if you've got a problem, you can use the art of legal warfare to get out of it. If you want to avoid warfare, then you recoup the taxes that are owed to you, because you've rented your energy on the Monopoly board and those taxes are owed back to you. You just haven't claimed them by doing the currency creation protocol. And then you use your private treasury to spend and recoup, and transfer all the assets to it. which will also help you with digital ID. Next slide. I'm going to let you explain these because this is your remit, Sims.
Thank you so much. So just look at, well, first, wow, what a great presentation there. And I'm sure everybody on here thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you made your notes. And yeah, it was great. So thank you so much for that, Ian. So as it says on the slides here, we do have hundreds, well, a lot more, but hundreds of members who really what they want to do is spread the message. Now, if you've been on our previous webinars before, you know, everybody agrees, you know, the information that Ian delivers is unbelievable. I mean, the feedback that we've had, if you're on our Telegram group, you would have seen our members' feedback. But what they want to do is go and spread the word. You know, it's just like people should be aware of this. People should know about all this information. So we've got lots of advocates who are spreading the word. We have different types of advocates, should I say. We have those who just dealing with, you know, just sharing with friends and family, but also we have those with huge networks. You know, if you're a multi-level marketer, a network marketer, an affiliate marketer yourself, you know, this is your, you know, your full-time job as such, then the program that we have is absolutely phenomenal. And the feedback that we get from all our advocates and advocate originator is great. So, you know, for example, when you refer a member, so through your advocate platform, you refer someone and they instruct Republic of Old Souls with a protocol and they make a donation fee, then you will receive a remuneration at the front end, but also a remuneration at the back end. In fact, it is a very generous package. I know Ian and I, we've looked at other advocate programs. I've been an affiliate manager for other organizations, and it's nothing like this. Remember also your referrals may pick more than one protocol. It could be a number of protocols that Ian has just demonstrated today. And of course, you know, you'll receive that remuneration front and back end as well. Also, I mentioned advocate originator. And what an advocate originator is someone who, you know, knows other affiliate marketers or multi-level marketers and networkers with large networks as well. But I do explain this in a lot more detail on my weekly presentations as well. And of course, part of the platform, you have your own account. You can see what remunerations you are due. It's all detailed there. But of course, again, I cover that in all my training. Did you want to add to that, Ian, or should I go to the next slide? I know we've got some other slides coming up as well.
For a lot of people out there, passive income is something which they're seeking. Yeah, and I know lots of people that are looking for passive income. Well, I genuinely think there's anything better than what we offer in terms of passive income. 100%. And you get to see what you can receive in a I think it's one of the next slides. You'll see the power of this. It's off the chart compared to anything else, any other passive income program I've ever seen. So,
no, absolutely agree. For example, now for those who are involved in multi-level marketing, network marketing, affiliate marketing, you will understand the terminology first in, last in. And for others who've never heard that terminology, let me just explain that. Whoever you add to the platform with the correct email address first, that is your referral, okay? And as Ian just said, passive income. So whatever your referral decides to do, there's the remuneration at the front end and the back end. It is not last in, which means that someone else could refer the same person and it will go to them. So you add them onto the platform with the correct email address first, they are your referrals. And then this generous passive income that we have. As I said, I have worked for other organizations and it was always last in. So this, I think, for an affiliate marketer, this is absolutely phenomenal. And as we can see here, we have this graph, gives you examples. And let's use the currency creation protocol example. Now, Ian did mention actually 2 million on previous slides, but let's just say be conservative and the 250,000. So if someone was recouping 250,000 a year, as you can see in this, just based on one member, and that's the earnings that you as an advocate would receive. But imagine then that one member spends and recoups. Let's say for the next 5 years. Well, that would be the earnings that you receive. Now you go from one member, then to 5, then to 10. And let's leave those figures there so you can just see for yourself. So you get the idea as such. Would I be right in saying, Ian, if you wanted to add to that as well?
Yeah, I mean, what's going on here is that what you're basically doing is you're introducing people that you may or may not know. And these might be social media people that you've got in your, that come through social media marketing.
Yes.
And once they start doing this, they're going to be using the cycling. They're going to spend and recoup every year, aren't they? Why would they not do that? So you've now got a lifetime of passive income. Just for introducing people to what we do. You don't have to go and sell it. You don't have to present it. You don't have to stand up in front of an audience and sell it to people or call them up and say, hey, would you like to do this and that? You just introduce them. And I think you're going to show people the webinar marketing plan as well, aren't you? So
yes, it'll be coming up shortly. And the thing is, in recent months, we've been speaking to a lot of network marketers and those involved in multi-level marketing. And one of the things they say is they put a lot of work in, and whatever they are, sharing about, be it product or a service. But the feedback I've had for them is, well, the company I'm working with could last 6 months or 12 months, maybe maximum 18 months. Now, I'm not saying this is all companies. There's some companies that the members I've spoken to who are involved, we're going to be around for a lot than that now, for many, many years ahead. So this is such a win-win for those who I know work incredibly hard, have built this network up, but then they can't, share that information anymore because the company is no longer around. We're around and we will be sticking around, for many, many years ahead. So here is an example just there. This, of course, just shows an example without the 5-year earning plan. Now, I mentioned about network marketers, multi-level marketers as well. And we only do have 2 levels. So it's originator and advocates as well. But here, as you can see, I'll just let you read that in full. But, those I've been speaking to, again, have huge networks. Well, if their networks, they're affiliate marketers who become advocates, then they refer and they spread the word. Well, here's some of the examples you can see, the potential earning. Now, remember, Ian mentioned, as I said a few slides back, 2 million. But let's have a look again. If we just conservative figure of 250,000 of a member who recoups and spend. And these are the, potential earnings here just for an originator, just based on these figures here. This is a fantastic opportunity from a passive income point of view. Ian has mentioned, and I will mention this again, I've never seen anything like this. And I have worked for a number of companies where I was the head of their affiliate department. It blows it out unbelievably. So here are the examples here. And of course, Ian, please add if you wish to as well. As well.
It may not be obvious unless you've been on one of your webinars already, that what's happening here is that if you were an originator, you're introducing advocates, and advocates are then introducing members of Republic of Old Souls. So this is you introducing people that become an advocate.
Yes.
And then that you're not introducing the end user, that you're introducing the advocate, and the advocate is introducing the member. So that's what you say, the two levels. You're either an advocate.
Yes.
You can be an advocate and an originator at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, definitely. So, but I do go in a lot more. Obviously, I appreciate there's more slides coming up, but I do go into so much detail so you really understand it. And, you know, people get it and go, it's a no-brainer. Absolutely no-brainer as well. And this just gives an example with the potential earnings for the next 5 years and, of course, without. So we wanted to show the difference as well. And this is something else that we've introduced as well. If you would like to, did you want to add, or me? I don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of people coming on these webinars, but I want to 10x it, at least 10x it in the next few months. So the remedies that I present are very, very powerful. We get awesome feedback from those who come. As we publish on our Telegram channels. And what we want is more people coming. Now, we're trying to make it as easy as possible to get more people to come and we couldn't do it today because of the sabotage. We tried to do it, but you know, the GoToWebinar link was sabotaged. So we give you a link and we give you a landing page, which basically explains what the webinar is about. And then you share that on social media. You send it to your network if you've got a network of people that you want to send it to. If they come on the webinar, anyone comes on the webinar and stays for at least 70% of the webinar, you're going to get a £10 reward, which you can set off against the donation that you're going to make if you want to access protocols going forward in the future. So if you bring 100 people in, at £10 a go, obviously that's worth having, yeah? How easy is it to bring 100 people into a webinar? Well, if you've got a big network, if you're into social media and you share it on your social media feeds, it shouldn't be that difficult to, over time, get 100 people to come to a webinar. So we could, you know, our target is to 10x our webinar numbers, but we could get a lot more than that.
Yeah, 100%.
And if the subject is powerful, and I think council tax and mortgage foreclosure, currency creation, all the things that I've been presenting, inheritance tax, pension liberation, all of these different things that I've presented over the last few months, there is a huge market of people out there seeking these remedies. So it's not like we're trying to sell something that no one's interested in. We're selling financial freedom. That's what we're selling. We're selling freedom from the UN Agenda 2030. That is what we're selling with a facilitated program that is unrivaled. There's nothing else available out there. It's not like you could go to Ian and Sims's webinar or you could go to these other people's webinar. It's the same thing. What we do is unique. So it should be attractive for people to come. If they knew about it, well, how do you get people to know about it? Networking and introducing the webinar to through your social media feeds is the way I want to do it.
No, definitely. And just so you know, Ian and everybody else, the feedback I've had from my advocates has been phenomenal. And they love the idea that they can share this link. And also it's a great opportunity for you to share the link as well, as explained. But I do go through that on my weekly webinars. We go into a lot more detail. But yeah, the feedback has been phenomenal. So just wanted to share that as well. Okay. Are you ready, Ian, for the questions that we've got?
Let's do it. Yeah,
let's do it. Okay. So question number 1, if council tax is not consensual statutory charge, how exactly does correcting my status to envoy or foreign national legally compare a local authority to stop their enforcement process?
Well, that's a great question, and it's not designed to stop a process. You see, you can't really stop the process because the process that the council is going to use is against the body corporate construct, this birth certificate construct, and it's registered to them. So you can't just say, I've changed my standing. I'm no longer, I don't want you to look at me in the same way as you did before. The council tax doesn't apply to me. So, have a nice day. See you later. It's not going to work like that. Your elevation of your standing to become an envoy enables you to, if you ever needed to, take up a case in the United States, which would be through ecclesia law, by the way. For most people, they don't need to do that. But if they want to recoup the abandoned credit, the currency creation program, then they really need to be of the envoy status, because you can't really recoup in the same way. There is a way of doing it, but it's much more appropriate if you are an envoy recouping abandoned credit. It's more to do with that than it is trying to avoid the council tax. A lot of people have tried using the sort of status and standing. They've tried all these different methods, and the council, they tell the council, look, I'm not that anymore. Your council tax doesn't apply to me, as I mentioned earlier on. It doesn't work. You can try it if you want, but I'll guarantee it won't work. So it's not about correcting your status and then avoiding the council tax. That doesn't work. What works is the art of legal warfare, or discharging the council tax by recouping your abandoned credit, the currency creation, and then spending and recouping. That's what works, those two things.
Lovely. Thanks, Ian, for that. Question 2. What is the specific success rate of the paralegal argument? And are there any recent cases beyond Ashford Borough Council versus Leslie Alexandra Ross where this has been tested in a UK court?
Well, it should work 100% of the time, because that's how the legal system works. It's all about case precedent. If you quote a case precedent, which is similar, if not the same, as the situation that you find yourself in, it should work every time. Have there been that many cases since this? It's only just happened. It's only been within the last few months that this case actually was won by Alexandra Ross, or Leslie Alexandra Ross. So it's not like there's hundreds of examples of it, because very few people know about it. And I have to say, the majority of people that are fighting the council tax are fighting all the wrong arguments. They're fighting the wrong war. They're fighting the battle in the wrong way. They should be using the art of legal warfare, but most people don't. They fight on all sorts of other battlegrounds, which invariably never win. It's like a bit insanity, really, but that's because they want it to win. And there's lots of people who also want it to win, but they forget one thing, which is where is the track record of it working, whatever these other ideologies are, and they just simply aren't out there.
Thank you for that. Question 3. How does the IRS Form 1099 OID and the 945 Master Record Alignment process apply to a UK-based citizen? And what is the risk of the 8010 code or facultative filters being triggered by the Treasury?
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
It's a bit.
So you see what's going on here. Most people make a fatal error. If they get involved if they start to get their head round the recoupment of abandoned credit, most people make a fatal error. They start filing tax returns using the body corporate construct as the filing entity. So Ian Clifford Stamp starts sending in tax returns to the United States Treasury, the 1099 OID form, expecting the United States Treasury to send back the recoupment, the abandoned credit, the taxes, back to Ian Clifford Stamp, the body corporate construct. Well, what's wrong with that is that Ian Clifford Stamp is registered to the cabal, registered to the Crown. It's theirs. And it's also a debtor. And debtors don't get tax rebates because they're debtors. And if the IRS does make a mistake by facilitating a tax rebate to a debtor, they can easily come and grab that. And worse than that, they can actually impose what they call frivolous filing penalties. And if it's really serious, they can put the taxpayer in jail. If it's really serious. So the way around that is the grantor trust. You put a grantor trust as a new player on the monopoly board that files the 1099 OID as the holder of the credit. The grantor trust becomes the creditor, becomes the nominee for the living man woman, perfectly in accordance with IRS publication 1212, which is exactly how it describes it in IRS publication 1212.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Question 4. Can you explain the mechanism by which the Melanie Clark Trust or a 98 series trust established holder in due course status over credit generated by a signature on a mortgage or loan?
Yeah, so this is, it could be called the John Brown or the Peter Smith Trust. It doesn't matter what the name of the trust is. Can you explain the mechanism by which the trust, that's the name of the trust, which is in the IRS code, it's a 98 series grant or trust, becomes the holder in due course? Well, the holder in due course is a nominee for the true creditor. So the trust, which is an artificial construct, takes up its standing as the holder in due course because it is a nominee. This type of trust operates as a nominee. It's all about nominees. I've written a whole research paper at Ecclesia Law about nominees. It's all about nominees. So the trust itself has the standing as a nominee, and therefore can be known by the IRS, the United States Treasury, as the holder in due course. That means the holder of the credit in due course, yeah? The holder, the owner, in due course means haven't yet recouped the taxes. That's what holder in due course means. And if you are recouping the face value of a mortgage, the taxes due back on the recoupment of the mortgage face value, not the mortgage payments, the face value of the mortgage is what we're talking about, is then due back to the grantor trust as a tax rebate for the owner of the credit. That's basically what it means.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Question number 5. If a local authority has already secured a liability order and a charging order, at what exact stage is it most effective to deploy the equalizer redress protocol to prevent a bankruptcy petition?
So I didn't really go into the equalizer redress protocol in detail. I'll probably do a whole webinar on it. If you came to last Saturday's webinar, I did mortgage foreclosure, right? So what happens here is if the council is going after the body corporate construct with a bankruptcy petition, right? The living man woman can assign the case. Remember, they're the agent for the body corporate construct. Well, the agent of the body corporate can assign the damages being caused to them to their international grant or trust, their asset fortress protocol. And now a case can be taken up in the United States that is basically it's for religious persecution, as I mentioned a little earlier on. So the council tax, which is probably the procedures probably haven't been followed correctly, because you can knock it out on the art of legal warfare. But let's imagine that there was some bizarre case where unusually the council had followed all the steps and everything that they'd done was completely compliant to the civil procedure rules, then you could transfer the damages to the basically to the United States, and you could sue the council for religious persecution. And the worst that could happen is it would delay it by a long time. And whilst it's being delayed, you would then be able to recoup the abandoned credit on the currency creation protocol. And the worst comes to it, you could discharge the tax bill, the council tax bill, through the recoupment of the abandoned credit.
Lovely, thank you for that. Now, as you heard Ian, he mentioned he went into a little bit more detail with that on last week's webinar. Well, the good news is we had recorded that and it is on the platform, so you too can watch that as well. So question number 6, how does the Asset Fortress Protocol distinguish between lawful avoidance and tax evasion in the eyes of the HMRC or other UK regulatory bodies when discharging debts through the third-party grants?
Okay, so let me explain why that question's there. When you recoup abandoned credit to your Asset Fortress Protocol, so you've got this new piece on the Monopoly board, it's got a bank account, you recoup abandoned credit to it. That is not an income. You're not making an income. You don't have to disclose it to HMRC or to any other tax office anywhere else in the world. That is it's a tax rebate. So you don't pay taxes on a tax rebate, yeah? Would be a bit crazy if you did, yeah? The taxes are due back to your grantor trust, which is the Asset Fortress Protocol. It doesn't have to be disclosed to the tax office because it's not an income. It's a tax rebate. So there isn't going to be any issue here. You're not avoiding paying taxes because there's no tax to pay because you're getting a tax rebate. So you see, the question really is about if you were receiving an income in the trust, does the trust have to pay taxes? Well, even if it were an income, the trust doesn't have to pay tax because it is not in the United Kingdom or Australia or the United States. It's an international trust. It's effectively its own nation. It doesn't pay taxes even if there was an income being received by it, which there isn't.
Thank you so much for that one. And question number 7. What are the practical steps and potential risks for a living man or woman who decides to reoccupy the office of General Executor while still residing in a property subject to domestic UK status?
Well, you can't take control 100% of the body corporate construct. What you can do is you can operate it in without committing fraud. So when you occupy the office of the General Executor over the decedent estate, which is the birth certificate construct, you can now operate it lawfully as the General Executor of this decedent estate. The living man, woman is occupying the office lawfully of the body corporate construct. At the moment, what's happening is basically it's called executor de son tort. So what's going on at the moment is the living man, woman is the agent for the body corporate construct, the birth certificate construct. And every time that the birth certificate construct does anything on a monopoly board, it's doing it in fraud. Because it's using the living man, woman as the agent is using the name of the body corporate, the birth certificate construct in fraud, because that name doesn't belong to the living man, woman. It's the Crown's name. It's the cabal's name. It's their body corporate, remember? So if you occupy the office and you've made declarations, you are cleaning it up. It's called clausula rebus sextantibus. It's a Latin name for cleaning up the agency, the error of agency that you were duped into, that you've been following and you've been So remember, the substance of what you've been doing is you've been operating as the agent for the body corporate birth certificate construct without knowing it. But the substance is there is no ignorance in the law. Ignorance is no defense in the law. So when you become the envoy, when you occupy the office of the general executor, you are cleaning up all of that substance of using the birth certificate construct, operating it in fraud, basically. They want you to operate it in fraud because they want you to have no rights. That's another reason why nobody ever wins in the council tax battles, because the living man woman is operating as the agent for the birth certificate construct in fraud, using the name of the birth certificate construct as if it were them. But it isn't them. It is it belongs to the Crown, and it's an impersonation fraud. So by occupying the office of the general executive, you're cleaning up the fraud, elevating the standing.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Ian. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when we started the webinar, I said if you have any additional questions, then there will be a slide coming up, and it will inform you where to email those additional questions, because there will be a follow-up to this with Ian and Andy. So I hope you've made a note of all the additional questions that you've got. And so just wait one more moment. A slide will appear and it will tell you where to send your additional questions as well. Thank you, Ian, for covering those 7 questions as well. Next step.
If you want to ask any further questions about protocols, about how they work, you're tailored to your own situation, for example, then we have a consultancy team. You click on this link, it takes you to a web page. You can then click through it and basically put in your email address, the email address that you've used to register on our platform, and then it opens up a calendar, and then you will already have a consultant assigned to you where you can book a consultation, and they'll walk you through protocols that you're interested in. And then you'll get to find out what the donation is that you need to fund in order to get off the ground with whichever protocols that you're interested in. And you've got 4 consultants. You've got 1 assigned to you, and then you've got another 3. If they don't have if the one that's been assigned to you doesn't have the the appointment time, the date or time that you're seeking.
Perfect, lovely. And here, for example, on this test referral, so if you see the top person here, we've got the lovely Paul, and all you need to do is just click on that and all the details will come up. And as Ian said, if for some reason the date you're looking for, your availability doesn't match up, then of course, just by clicking here, you've got the rest of the team, and they are super great. They are lovely guys. And yeah, so you're going to have a really, really good one-to-one with them, and they're so helpful as well. So, right, let's close that down and go to the next screen.
And here we've got all the things that are relevant to this webinar. You've got all the Great Escape protocols, which is the top link, and then you've got other things. You've got video, you've got documents. All of these links really are all connected to today's webinar, which you'll be able to access these things as long as together with what I explained at the beginning of the webinar: Ecclesia Law, the Telegram channels. We've got YouTube. There's so much information. Ross Media, so much information. I think we've done pretty well on information provision, I think so.
Oh, 100%. Definitely. I do agree with you on that. Now, as you know, this webinar is being recorded and will be on the platform in the next few days. Along with the recording will be these additional handouts that will complement today's presentation as well. I don't know if you need to add anything to that.
No, you'll get all these. I mean, these are all available. Most of these are available also at Ecclesia Law. if you just wanted to go there and look at them on the Ecclesia Law website or the Telegram channel, a lot of these are already on there, which you can access them there as well.
Now, as I also mentioned, if you have any additional questions, please use this particular email, which is simone.p@ntrxf.org. A follow-up session with Ian and Andy will take place to address and answer all of your questions. And also, have you enjoyed today's webinar? I hope you have. So much great information that Ian has shared today. So if you want to give us your feedback, by all means, please email me. And because the feedback we have had already in past webinars have been absolutely phenomenal. So thank you for those who've been sharing your feedback. And if you've enjoyed today, we'd love to hear your feedback as well. Ian, do you have anything to add?
Well, only that we really want to spread the word. We're doing a webinar every Saturday. Most of the webinars we're doing, not every single one, but most of them are on demand. So people in our membership say, can you do a webinar on this, do it on that? And that's what we're doing. So we're looking to address the growing number of problems that are on the Monopoly Board of Commerce with remedy. Things that actually work, not just rhetoric and talking about theory. Things that actually work is where I think there's a huge gap. There's lots of gurus out there who talk a great game, but can they play the game and win and actually show you whether their ideology actually works? And that's why I've launched the Ecclesia Law, to show you what works, why it works, how it works. But also, there are some rogue actors out there who are maliciously set their platforms up to harm people. So I also want the membership to tell me, are you being damaged by any rogue actors? Empower the People, for example, we've had lots of people come to us who have been involved with them. That's Simon Goldberg and Simone Marshall. There's other groups out there that are maliciously harming people. That's what they do. That's their whole raison d'etre. It's their whole methodology of what they do is to harm people with all sorts of, I've done a whole interview on this, so I'm not going to go into it now. If you are aware of any organization out there that is in the truth and freedom space that is causing harm, I want to know who they are. And I will do an expose of them on the Equalizer project. I will do a forensic investigation into what they're doing. I'll publish it in a research paper. Andy and I will do an interview about what they're doing, how they're doing it, why you should avoid them. And then we will build out a website, which will be an expose website, a whistleblowing website about what they do, how they do it, why you should avoid them. And also, if they are doing things which are criminal, of which, like Empower the People, they are involved in crime, we will blow the whistle. Ecclesia Law will blow the whistle on them, because I want to remove these rogue actors from the truth and freedom community. There's too many of them, and I want to remove them.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, as I said, any additional questions, don't forget, email me on this particular email address, as you can see on the slide, and of course your feedback as well. So thank you so much for taking the time out today, and I hope you have a wonderful Saturday afternoon and of course the rest of the weekend. And just as a polite reminder, this is being recorded. It will be uploaded onto our platform in the next few days, along with those handouts as well. Ian, thank you so much for today and taking the time out. Great information as always. Myself and on behalf also of the team as well, the information you share, we're like sponges. We like to absorb all that information, but also it's a great refresher, because I know we have a mixed audience on here, as well as our existing members and of course new members that have attending for the very first time through the member referral webinar links and the advocate webinar referral links as well. But before we go in, is there any other final words from
Just
you?
spread the word. I mean, we're going to be handing out the webinar invitations. I'd love you to share them. Let's 10x the number of people coming, on these webinars. And if we can do that, then I think we can really show people remedy to a lot of the problems that are on this monopoly board.
Lovely. Well, on that note, have a wonderful afternoon. Ian, hope you have a good afternoon as well, and of course weekend. And well, thank you for joining us. And on that note, take care and goodbye.
Bye for now.